is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi.
All right, we
Here
got
now,
more
Tony
on
Bruschi.
Celeste case right here.
A Los Angeles grand jury has been hearing evidence.
Probably about 10 to 15 minutes.
Let that sink in for a moment, because when prosecutors start bringing witnesses before a grand jury, it signals that a case has moved beyond speculation, beyond internet sleuthing, beyond the fog of rumor and counter-rumor that has surrounded this story since September. It means the machinery of justice is grinding forward. In a case like this, the case of Celeste Hernandez, the 14-year-old girl whose decomposed remains were discovered in the trunk of a Tesla registered to rising star David, D4vd, the machinery appears to be closing in. Let me walk you through exactly where we are and how we got here and what this all means. The grand jury, what it is, and why it matters. In mid-November of 2025, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office began presenting evidence to what's called an investigative grand jury. This isn't a trial. It's not even a formal accusation yet, but it's significant because what you need to understand here, an investigative grand jury is a tool prosecutors use when they need to dig deeper. Unlike a regular grand jury that simply decides whether to indict someone based on evidence presented by prosecutors, an investigative grand jury has subpoena power. It can compel witnesses to testify under oath. It can demand documents, videos, digital records, anything relevant to the case. And crucially, witnesses called before a grand jury cannot have their attorneys present in the room. They're alone with the prosecutors and the jury. According to law enforcement sources who spoke with the Los Angeles Times, this grand jury was in session for several days in mid-November about this case. Multiple witnesses have been called. The prosecutor handling the case, Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman, someone who handles the county's most high-profile murder cases. That's not coincidence. That's a statement. Now, here's an important distinction. This type of investigative grand jury cannot itself return an indictment. It can recommend charges. It can issue subpoenas. It can gather evidence. But the final decision on whether to formally charge anyone rests with the district attorney's office. These proceedings can take months, particularly in complex cases where the circumstances of death remain kind of murky. And make no mistake, this case is murky. Very murky. Like disgusting, swamp-like murky. So how did we get here? Let's rewind back to September 8th of 2025. And as we do that, in the comment section on YouTube, I want to hear your thoughts on this case. Give me your thoughts. Give me your feedback. Because we read your comments, and I want to hear your feedback, because that helps us determine angles of this case, of what we should be digging into, what your thoughts are, what your concerns are. So please do leave that there on YouTube. If you're not already there, Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi, find it, and that's where we are. Hit subscribe while you're there. Anyway, let's rewind back to September 8th of 2025. A Tesla Model Y had been sitting on Bluebird Avenue in the Hollywood Hills for weeks. Neighbors noticed it. The city noticed it too. They marked the tires on August 27th, issued a parking citation on September 3rd, and finally had it towed on September 5th. 2 days later, employees at Hollywood Tow noticed something was wrong. A foul odor, flies. They called the police. When officers opened the front trunk, or as you may have heard, the frunk, they noticed a black garbage bag. Inside that bag were human remains, decomposed, dismembered, the body of a teenage girl who had been missing for over a year. Her name? Celeste Hernandez. She was from Lake Elsinore, a city about 75 miles southeast of Los Angeles. She'd been reported missing in April of 2024 when she was just 13 years old. She ran away multiple times and returned home, but after her final disappearance in late April or early May of 24, her family only heard from her once, a phone call at the end of May, allegedly, then silence. The medical examiner declared her dead on September 8th of 2025, one day after what would have been her 15th birthday. Based on the condition of her remains, investigators believe she'd been dead for months, likely since spring of 25. The Tesla she was found in, it was registered to David Anthony Burke. You know him as David. The suspect in this case, one of the suspects in this case. Allegedly, David is 20 years old. He rose to fame in an almost quintessentially modern way, posting Fortnite gameplay clips on YouTube, you know, because that's how you become famous today. Watch me play a video game. It's true. Building a following and then pivoting to music. His breakout hit, Romantic Homicide, went viral on TikTok. By 2025, he had over 33 million monthly listens on Spotify and millions of followers across social media platforms. He was on a world tour. He was playing Coachella. He was, by any measure, a rising star. When Celeste's body was discovered, David was in Minneapolis in the middle of his Withered tour. The tour was scheduled to stop in Los Angeles on September 20th at the Greek Theater. That never happened. On September 19th, David abruptly canceled the remainder of his tour, both the U.S. and European legs. And on September 17th, detectives from the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division executed a search warrant on a home in the Hollywood Hills, a rental property where David had been staying, leased by his manager. They left with bags of evidence, including electronic devices. And here's where the official narrative and the realities start to diverge. David's representatives initially claimed he was fully cooperating with authorities. Okay, good. But according to multiple law enforcement sources who have spoken to NBC, ABC, and other outlets, they say that's not true. David has not cooperated from the beginning. He has not sat down for an interview with the police. He has, according to sources, been uncooperative throughout. That's the allegation. In early October, David hired Blair Burke, a high-powered criminal defense attorney who has represented some of the Hollywood's biggest names, including Harvey Weinstein. It's the kind of lawyer that people hire when they're facing serious trouble. The LAPD has been careful with its public statements for weeks. They refused to call the case a homicide investigation because the medical examiner hadn't determined a cause of death. They wouldn't name suspects, but behind the scenes, the picture was different. According to sources across multiple news organizations, investigators have been treating David as a suspect. One source put it bluntly: investigators are looking at David as a suspect. More than that, police believe he had help. The theory? Multiple suspects. Here's what investigators believe happened, based on reporting from TMZ, ABC, NBC, and the Los Angeles Times. Celeste Hernandez likely died sometime in the spring of 2025. The manner of her death remains officially undetermined. Her body was too decomposed for the medical examiner to establish a definitive cause. But investigators are treating this as a murder. They believe David played a role in her death. They also believe he did not act alone. The dismemberment of Celeste's body, and sources have confirmed her remains were dismembered, strongly suggest the involvement of multiple people. According to TMZ, police have identified a second suspect specifically connected to the handling and disposal of the body. There's another detail that has drawn investigative attention. Sometime in the spring of 2025, David made a trip to a remote area of Santa Barbara County. According to one source, he traveled there in the middle of the night and remained for several hours. The LAPD has confirmed this trip occurred, but says they have drawn no conclusions about its relevance to the case. That phrasing is careful. It's not denial. So what happened in Santa Barbara? Investigators are still trying to answer that question.
David, the movie.
I will not be. What is going on with this relationship? This is where the case becomes even more disturbing. Celeste Hernandez was 13 when she went missing. David was 19 at the time. By the time of her death, she was 14. He was 20. Photos and videos have circulated online appearing to show David and Celeste together. Her mother told TMZ that Celeste had been dating someone named David before she disappeared. Screenshots of Discord messages posted before Celeste's body was discovered show someone identifying as David mentioning a girlfriend named Celeste, allegedly. There's details that has haunted that's a detail that has haunted observers of this case for quite some time. Celeste also had a tattoo on her right index finger that read, "Shh." Getty image photos showed David with a seemingly identical tattoo in the same location. What does it mean? The nature of their relationship, if confirmed, raises serious questions beyond the circumstances of her death. A 19 or 20-year-old man in a relationship with a 13 or 14-year-old girl is, by definition, statutory rape in California, regardless of whether the minor consented. But investigators appear focused on something far more serious than that. Not that that is not serious, but considering she's dead, there's slightly more serious issues at hand at this moment in time. And again, these are allegations. We don't know what the nature of that relationship was. Lots of people have speculated. We've speculated. Personally, over here, you want my opinion? I kind of think that they were friends. I don't know that David likes girls. That's my speculation. That is my speculation. That has not come out. That's just pure conjecture. We don't really see any evidence as of this moment of it other than being a platonic relationship. An odd one at best, but I could be easily proven wrong in 2 seconds if some other piece of evidence comes out. But as of now, just because a male and a female are friends does not necessarily mean something of that nature is going on. It would be extremely illegal if it was. Not to say that it couldn't be either. The answer is we simply do not know. When you don't know, people fill in blanks. The legal landscape, what could happen from here now is what we're looking at. So where does this all go? Well, let me break down the possibilities. Scenario 1, grand jury recommends charges. The investigative grand jury could complete its work and recommend that charges be filed. This would likely be murder charges, possibly murder in the first degree if prosecutors believe Celeste's death was premeditated, or second-degree murder if they believe it was intentional but not planned. There could also be additional charges, accessory after the fact for anyone who helped dispose of the body, abuse of a corpse, and potentially charges related to the suspected sexual relationship with a minor. If the grand jury recommends charges, the district attorney's office would then decide whether to respond. Given the high-profile nature of the case and the resources already invested, a recommendation from the grand jury would likely be followed. Then there's scenario 2. Direct filing of charges. The DA's office doesn't need a grand jury to file charges. They could, at any point, determine they have sufficient evidence and file directly. This could happen if investigators gather enough evidence through other means. Digital forensics, witness testimony, physical evidence from the search warrant, things like that. And there's scenario 3. Arrest before charges. If investigators develop a probable cause, the legal standard required for an arrest, they could arrest David before formal charges are filed, or arrest someone. Again, David has maintained his innocence throughout all of this. He's never been charged with anything. This sometimes happens in murder cases when prosecutors are concerned a suspect might flee, or when circumstances demand immediate action. Once arrested, the DA would have a limited window to file former charges. And there's scenario 4, an extended investigation. Investigative grand juries can operate for months. The case could remain in this investigative phase for some time, with prosecutors continuing to gather evidence, call witnesses, and build their case. This is particularly likely if the cause of death remains officially undetermined. It's harder to prove murder when you can't definitively establish how someone died. And there's the wild card, the medical examiner. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office has been at the center of a quiet conflict. The LAPD obtained a court order sealing all autopsy information, cause of death, manner of death, the full medical examiner's report. The department says this was done to ensure detectives learned key information before it became public, not to undermine transparency. But the medical examiner's office has pushed back publicly, issuing statements that seem to express frustration with the security hold. There have been conflicting reports about the condition of the body, claims that it was frozen, claims that it was decapitated. The LAPD specifically denied both. The body of Celeste Rivas was not frozen when it was discovered. She had not been decapitated. So what does that mean? Because the cause of death is crucial to any murder prosecution. If the medical examiner cannot determine how Celeste died, prosecutors will have to prove murder through circumstantial evidence. It can be done. People have been convicted of murder even when no body was found, but it is harder. A 14-year-old girl is dead. Her body was found dismembered in the trunk of a car belonging to a pop star who, by multiple accounts, had been in a relationship with her of some sort when she was just 13. She'd been missing for over a year. Her remains have been decomposing for months, and the man whose car she was found in has refused to cooperate with police, allegedly. The grand jury is a sign that the system is working. Slowly, methodically, but it's working. Prosecutors are building a case. Witnesses are being called. Evidence is being gathered under oath. LAPD Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton said something recently that really does stick with me. He said accountability is coming. He said detectives are going to get justice for Celeste Rivas. Those aren't the words of investigators who are stuck. Those are the words of investigators who believe they know what happened and are working to prove it. David remains free. He has not been charged with any crime. He is, legally speaking, innocent until proven guilty. His attorneys have not confirmed publicly anything or commented publicly on the substance of the investigation in any way, shape, or form. But the walls are closing in. A grand jury is hearing evidence. High-profile prosecutors are involved. Multiple sources say police have identified suspects, plural. And somewhere in all of this is the digital evidence, the witness testimony, the forensic analysis, the timeline of movements and messages. Investigators believe they will find the truth about what happened to Celeste Rivas Hernandez. The story isn't over. It's just entering the most critical phase. And we will keep watching. Give me your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube. If you're not already there, search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. That's where you'll find us on YouTube. Hit subscribe while you're there, please, so you don't miss any of our commentary. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We will see if we get there. Maybe. If you so choose to help support the channel and hit that subscribe button, that would be wonderful. And also, importantly, your thoughts in the comment section. We read them all. Try to respond to them all. We get thousands every day, so it's a little difficult, but we try. We definitely try, and we are watching and listening to you. So please, that sounds kind of creepy. We're watching and listening to you. We're like Santa Claus, but not creepy. We actively want to hear your thoughts, so please leave them on YouTube. I'm Tony Bruschi. Until next time, we will talk again.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now.
And the irony of it was that person that was saying, I love you, she's not in my life.
Yes, that David is now considered a suspect in the death of 15-year-old Celeste.
Took this mysterious trip to a very remote area of Santa Barbara.
Had planned to just get rid of the body in Santa Barbara and then panic and drive back to LA with her body.
David is probably stressing heavy right now because investigators just made it official. He's a suspect in Celeste Rivas' case, and the whole situation just flipped on its head. For months, people were whispering that this moment was coming, and now police are straight up saying they believe he played some kind of role in what went down. And it gets even messier because authorities quietly confirmed there's another suspect in the shadows. Multiple sources are claiming the woman's body was frozen before being taken apart, which means somebody was trying to slow everything down and erase every trace they could. That alone has the streets staring hard at every detail. Then there's the timing. New leaks point straight back to spring, the same period people believe Celeste passed, and the picture being painted is something nobody wanted to face. Reports claim David allegedly drove out to a remote spot in Santa Barbara County late at night and stayed there for hours, and that timeline lines up way too clean with when she was first believed to be gone. At the same time, sources say he still hasn't cooperated for real, not even once. His team spent months pushing the whole "he's helping the investigation" angle to calm people down and protect his image, but behind the scenes, there's been zero real movement from him. Now, the moment everybody has been waiting on is finally here. If even half the footage and leaks turn out legit, things could get serious real fast. The second investigators confirmed David is officially a suspect, everything shifted because until now, police refused to say he was directly connected to anything. They used to keep everything soft and neutral. Person of interest, different angles, all that safe language. But now they're openly saying his name and locking in on him as the one they're watching hard. People close to the case say investigators believe he had a direct part in Celeste's death and that someone else helped him move her body afterward. And that alone explains why certain people in his circle might be acting nervous right now. Investigators don't start looking at more than one person unless they're already seeing links forming behind closed doors, and those kinds of connections don't pop up for no reason.
PD sources say investigators now consider David a suspect.
That's why the spring timeline suddenly matters again. Reports claim Celeste likely passed during that period, and investigators have quietly been retracing every single move he made in those months, piece by piece. One detail that keeps getting repeated is the late-night drive he allegedly took to a remote area in Santa Barbara County. Far from home, totally off the radar, and falling right in the same window, people believe she disappeared for good. Everything landing in that same time frame is making people uneasy.
D has some tracking information where they claim that David took this mysterious trip to a very remote area of Santa Barbara County in the middle of the night in the spring of 2025. Now, that is months before the body was discovered in Los Angeles.
But this is where things take an even darker twist, because investigators just leaked something nobody saw coming. There's a second suspect now. Someone who might have actually been inside David's Tesla at the same time Celeste's body was in the back. And police aren't just throwing guesses out here. Detectives pulled this person's phone and social media data, and everything hits the same Hollywood Hills location during the exact window Celeste is believed to have passed. And that alone has everybody frozen in shock. Then there's the part the internet can't even process. Sources say the medical examiner got her remains in a condition that showed something deeply planned, not random. Her body had clearly been kept in cold storage, which means whoever was involved wasn't moving sloppy. They knew how to delay everything and hide what really happened. Investigators reported that only part of her body was still together, while the rest had been separated in a way that suggested someone tried to make detection harder, and the cold temperature confirmed it was intentionally preserved. All of it was starting to thaw inside the trunk of David's Tesla when police finally opened it. And the wild part is that car had been sitting there for days. It was parked on a random Hollywood Hills street near his rental, untouched, like someone hoped nobody would look twice. The car getting towed by chance is the only reason investigators even found her. Her condition was so hard to assess at first that investigators couldn't immediately confirm basic details, and that threw the whole scene into chaos. Then there's the issue of cooperation. While his team kept pushing this polished storyline that he was helping investigators, officers shut that down instantly. They said he hasn't given them anything useful, making his whole PR push look more like deflection than facts.
The same source, the 20-year-old singer is reportedly not cooperating with this investigation, despite his PR team saying otherwise the entire...
And now things get even more suspicious because a Reddit post is blowing up and it's gaining traction fast. The viral post was straight up calling all of this out. Someone wrote that David has been astroturfing and trying to twist public perception in his favor from the jump, practically begging investigators to move on him immediately. And people aren't laughing it off. They're pointing to patterns that keep showing up again and again. According to commenters, every time someone online tried to talk about his connections, his influence, or the Hollywood circles he stays around, their posts got slammed with downvotes, wild replies, and accounts that looked like they were made just to defend him. The post even claimed his hired guns were sliding into threads to pump up his innocence and bury anything that made him look involved. And it wasn't just denial. It was the way some of these accounts kept trying to flip the whole conversation. One comment that blew up said, "Not just deniers, but take note of people who try to shift the convo towards Celeste's family when news drops." Now, nobody is saying her family can't be questioned like anyone else, but it looks extra suspicious when the second David's name comes up in a questionable light. Random accounts pop out of nowhere, dragging her family, nitpicking them, or blaming them for things that don't even track. Then there was another comment that had everybody looking sideways. Not the people who be saying Celeste wasn't backstage did it for me. That one hit a nerve because people remember when those photos leaked of a girl who looked exactly like Celeste backstage with Caleb, David's brother. The internet exploded. And then out of nowhere, TMZ reported that sources confirmed it wasn't her. But now that investigators are openly naming David as a suspect, people are starting to question that whole story again. Folks are asking if it was really a mix-up or if his team jumped in too fast to shut down anything that looked even slightly incriminating. When you look at the silence, the contradictions, and the heavy online cleanup, it doesn't feel like a group defending someone with nothing to hide. It feels like a crew trying to control the narrative before the real details spill out. The state Celeste was found in made one thing clear. Whatever happened, it wasn't something one person could have handled alone.
They're focusing in on certain individuals, and those individuals are concerned now that they know that the LAPD is focusing in.
The movement, the handling, the way she turned up, all of it points to more than one set of hands. And that's exactly why investigators keep circling back to multiple suspects. But even with all that, people online keep bringing up another layer, the situation around their relationship, which has always raised questions. Commenters say the whole thing felt off from day one because there was talk that Celeste wasn't fully living an independent adult life when she left home, and some folks online argued she didn't seem old enough to be on her own the way she was portrayed. Meanwhile, David was already an adult, and people are debating whether he should have been involved with someone whose personal situation seemed unstable and unclear. Yes, there were rumors that she had a rough home life and kept leaving, but that doesn't change the debate people are having now. Some online voices call it wrong, others call it exploitation, but either way, the public opinion around him is looking messy, and it adds a whole new layer to everything investigators are sorting through. Why this whole situation feels off is what everyone keeps talking about. And then there's the theory Reddit refuses to drop, the one that blew up like wildfire. One comment said both she and David mentioned pregnancy in July 2024 and that her last known sighting was at a nightclub with him just days later. People online claimed that if the brothers' estimate about her passing between July and August 2025 were accurate, she would have been out of the public eye for a whole year, enough time for anything to happen behind the scenes. Some folks even pushed the idea that David might have forced her into hiding so nobody would notice anything changing about her body. But that's pure speculation from the internet. When the autopsy report got deferred, the one thing confirmed quickly was that Celeste wasn't pregnant, and authorities shut that rumor down fast. But even with that detail cleared, people are still questioning everything because nothing around this case feels straight. Now the conversation online is shifting to potential footage because investigators are expected to lean hard on digital evidence. David drove a Tesla, and Teslas record everything. Motion, doors opening, people walking by, even tiny movements inside the car. So now the assumption is that investigators will pull every internal camera log, match up timestamps, and finally trace when Celeste Celeste's body was placed where it was found, and who was anywhere near that car at the time. That's why the convo online keeps looping back to the same questions. What was he doing in that strange window before he suddenly left town? Why did his car keep bouncing around the neighborhood like someone was trying to keep it out of sight? And why did his whole world slam to a stop the second investigators started asking real questions? Everybody knows the last puzzle piece now is whatever that Tesla footage shows. And once it drops, people believe his entire life might collapse in a single night. If you're rocking with this breakdown, make sure
a Tesla abandoned on a Hollywood street, and a rising music artist now being quietly described as a suspect, while a Los Angeles grand jury hears evidence behind closed doors. Hey everybody, it's me, AV, and on this channel we talk about all things law, true crime, and a little bit of debauchery. And today we're breaking down the tragic death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a teenager whose body was found in the front trunk of a Tesla registered to the artist David, and what it really means now that this case is in front of a grand jury. We're going to separate internet rumor from confirmed fact, talk about what the word suspect means and what grand jury actually means in real-world criminal law, and walk through what could realistically happen next. Before we start, this case involves the death of a minor, and a lot of online conversation has been wild. I'm going to keep the names and details focused on what's already been widely reported, and we're going to treat everyone as innocent until proven guilty. This is legal analysis, not a conviction. Let's start with Celeste. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was 14 years old when she went missing from her California home in early April of 2024. Like a lot of these teens, she was online and had friends across different cities. And her disappearance didn't immediately become national news. It was more of a local missing child case that only really exploded after the Tesla. Let's talk about why. We're going to fast forward to September 8th, 2025. And when we do that, a Tesla is towed from a street in Hollywood. It had been sitting there long enough that it was tagged and hauled to a tow yard. Employees started smelling something coming from the car, specifically from the front trunk. They open it and find a decomposing body in a bag. Eventually, the remains are identified as Celeste. The Tesla is registered to David Anthony Burke, better known as David, the 20-year-old singer behind songs like Here With Me and Romantic Homicide. At the time of that discovery, he reportedly was on tour. His Hollywood Hills rental was searched by LAPD, and the internet does what it does. It goes nuclear. And here's where the rumors start. We're going to talk about rumors versus confirmed facts. I want to pause here and really separate what's actually confirmed from what people are repeating in comments. There were early viral claims saying Celeste was frozen and even decapitated when she was found. Some of that came from sensational coverage and then got amplified on social media and YouTube. But in the last week, LAPD has gone on record saying that that is not true. An LAPD captain told both People magazine and local ABC News that Celeste was not frozen and not decapitated, and that based on the condition of her body, they believe she had been in that Tesla for weeks in intense summer heat in California, making that frozen theory basically impossible. Now, to be clear, police have also said her body was at least partially dismembered, which is horrifying enough on its own, but the more graphic rumors being thrown around on TikTok are not supported by what law enforcement is actually saying. So fact check. Here's what we have confirmed. Her decomposing remains were found in a bag in the front trunk of the Tesla registered to David in a tow yard in Hollywood on September 8th, right? Also confirmed, she had been reported missing from her local town since April of 2024. Also confirmed, LAPD has called this an investigation into murder in a court filing and placed a security hold on her autopsy and case file. Here's what's not supported by police. Claims that she was frozen solid or decapitated. We also do not have an official cause of death yet. The medical examiner's office says the cause of death is still deferred pending more information and a toxicology report. So if you see people online confidently saying she died exactly like this, it's speculation. That may end up aligning with what we learn later, or it may not. But right now, that's not coming from the coroner. So now let's talk about the security hold, because this is one of the main reasons the public is so suspicious. Normally, in a high-profile death, you can search the LA County Medical Examiner's website, we can do it ourselves, and see basic details. That includes name, age, cause, and manner of death once they're determined. And in Celeste's case, the LAPD went to court and got an order blocking the medical examiner from releasing pretty much anything, even basic records. The medical examiner has actually gone public criticizing this, saying that these security holds are rare, not very transparent, and not proven to make investigations better. They've basically said, we don't really like this, but the court told us we have to keep quiet. They put a muzzle on us. So from the outside, this looks like a dead teenager found in a celebrity's car. No cause of death released. No public records. Tons of rumors. And now a grand jury meeting in secret. You can see why people don't trust what's actually happening behind the scenes. But legally, this is actually a very normal path for a big, sensitive case. Let's talk about why. We'll get into the grand jury in a second. But first we need to talk about this suspect. A lot of you have asked me, okay, has he actually been named a suspect or not? And the answer is, it depends on which outlet you're reading and on what day. But as of now, yes, David has officially been named a suspect. Here's what we know from mainstream reporting. ABC7 in LA and New York have both reported, quoting sources, that law enforcement considers David a suspect in the investigation into Celeste's death. A Los Angeles Times article describes the LAPD court filing as an investigation into the murder and notes that the girl's remains were found in his Tesla. Fox 11 previously said no suspects or persons of interest were officially being pursued at the moment, and that his reps claimed that he was cooperating. But later coverage from outlets like People quote sources saying he has not been fully cooperative. And you guys know I have a communications background, so I look at how outlets communicate. What I can tell you is this thing is messy. Here's how I'd translate it from legalese into English. Police absolutely see him as a key figure in the case. Multiple outlets say he's being treated as a suspect, but officially, LAPD is being careful. They have not marched up to a podium and said, he is our main suspect, the way you'd sometimes see in other cases. And here's the big thing. The word suspect is not a magic legal word. It's not a formal status like defendant or like the word indicted. It basically just means this is someone we think might have committed a crime and we're investigating. The important part, as of right now, no one has been arrested or charged in Celeste's death. And that's a big deal, right? Because until that happens, David or any other potential suspect is presumed innocent. And I know a lot of people are like, flame David alive right now. We can talk about how suspicious it looks. We can critique law enforcement. We can honor Celeste. but we do not get to skip ahead of the verdict. All right, we're going to get into what a grand jury actually is and why this is such a big step in this case. But first, a quick 60-second break. Cases like this are a grim reminder of how much our life is online. Location data, meaning where your Tesla goes. Social media, meaning who you stream with. Everything. This is why this channel is sponsored by Aura, an all-in-one tool that helps you from identity theft, data brokers, and scammers. They go after data brokers who are selling your personal information and automatically opt you out. If your info is floating around on the dark web, it only takes one bad actor to cause serious problems. Aura monitors 24/7 and alerts you immediately. So if someone tries to open an account in your name, you can shut it down before it becomes a legal mess. Aura backs you up with up to $5 million in identity theft insurance just in case the worst happens. Plus, Aura comes with a built-in VPN that lets you browse privately with 100+ virtual locations. Scan the QR code or go to aura.com/AV7 to try Aura for free for 14 days. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect yourself now. All right, let's talk juries. In the last few days, we learned that a Los Angeles County grand jury has heard evidence in this case. That came out because LAPD referenced the grand jury in their petition to block the coroner from releasing information. So what does that mean? A grand jury is not a trial jury. They're very different types of juries. They are not deciding guilt or innocence. A grand jury's job is much narrower. These are questions a grand jury might ask. Is there enough evidence? Is there enough probable cause to indict or charge somebody with a crime? Here's how it typically works in California for a case like this. Prosecutors go into a closed courtroom with about 19 grand jurors. Defense attorneys are usually not in the room. Here's why. There's no cross-examination like you see at trial. Prosecutors present witnesses, documents, forensics, basically their best narrative on what the case would be. Grand jurors can ask questions, but the process is still very one-sided on the side of the prosecution. At the end, the jurors vote on whether there's probable cause to believe a crime was committed and that a specific person committed it. If they say yes, that's called an indictment. This magic word here. If they say no, that's sometimes called a no bill. And prosecutors either go back to investigating, in some cases, or the case dies. Or they try a different way of filing charges. In Celeste's case, here's the key. Multiple outlets say the grand jury heard several days' worth of evidence in mid-November. As of this recording, we do not know whether they voted or what they voted. There's no public indictment yet. So the grand jury is a sign that prosecutors are treating this very seriously. You don't convene a grand jury, block the coroner, and search a Hollywood Hills home because you're bored. But it's not proof that anyone will be definitively charged either. So let me list out the major unknowns, because sometimes knowing what we don't know is just as important. We do not know Celeste's official cause of death. That's under security holds and still listed as deferred. We do not know exactly when she died or how long she was in the Tesla, beyond police estimates of weeks. We do not have a public, detailed timeline of her last known movements, who she was with, who she was texting, where she was staying, for that April 2024 to September 2025 window. We do not know whether the grand jury has already voted. And granted, we are just coming out of a holiday weekend, so it could still be in process. Are they still hearing evidence? Is this going to be presented with additional witnesses later? And we do not know whether any potential suspect, whether it's David or anybody else, will be indicted, arrested, or cleared. All we really have is a horrifying set of facts about how Celeste was found. A lot of online chatter, and some of it has been checking out. A police department saying this is a murder investigation, and much, much more. We know that there is a second person that they're looking at, but a grand jury quietly deciding what is happening next. The other thing that I'll talk about in a second, and this is really important, is really looking at, hey, when we have grand juries impaneled, it's also a device that prosecutors and police investigators use when people don't cooperate. So when you see videos titled, "Here's the proof he did it," "Here's the secret story of what happened that night," understand, people are filling in the gaps that the actual record has not filled yet. We also have to talk about the context. There are already people online, not just in this case, but in general, who feel like they know artists and influencers. They follow their relationships, they decode lyrics, and they join fan discords. That makes it really easy for predators to hide in plain sight, and it also makes it really easy to jump to conclusions about who's guilty when something horrible happens. In this specific case, people have dug up old Discord chats, music videos, lyrics, and connected them to Celeste. Activists and commentators have taken strong positions, some saying he's being railroaded, others saying this speaks for itself. David's done. We can hold two truths at the same time. A 14-year-old girl being found dead in a car registered to a 20-year-old recording artist is massive. A legitimate red flag that deserves full scrutiny and public outrage. The people who actually have full evidence right now are police, medical examiners, and the grand jury. Not YouTube, not TikTok, not us. This case is about Celeste, and that's what we should focus on as more information comes out. So what are the possible next moves? The first scenario is an indictment. The grand jury decides there is probable cause to charge somebody. Maybe David, maybe someone else we haven't heard about yet. Maybe the person that caused this damage to her body. And if that happens, we'll likely see a sealed indictment unsealed, an arrest or a surrender. Or maybe a first court appearance where charges are read out and bail is argued. This happened in the state of California. She was a California resident, and so is David, so it may be a state case. Scenario 2 is a no bill, no charges yet. The grand jury could decide the evidence just isn't there right now. That doesn't mean the case is dead forever, but it could mean that prosecutors would need more before going back. Scenario 3, more investigation. There may be a kind of in-between space. They've heard some evidence, they want more. They ask prosecutors to bring in additional witnesses, experts, or digital forensics. Alongside that, we're watching for final cause and manner of death determination from the medical examiner. It's so important. Once the security hold is lifted, then we're looking from any public clarification from the LAPD, especially if they decide to name an official suspect. We know they're looking at David, but he's not the only one. Statements from Celeste's family or David's side as legal positions harden. And when those pieces move, you're going to see the narrative shift very, very fast. Shout out to Bruce Rivers and other attorneys that are watching this case. We do believe that we're going to see movement on it within the next 30 to 60 days. Now, let's close this up. At the center of all of this is a teenager who should still be alive, right? Celeste was so young when she died. A kid who should be arguing with friends about music, not debating in a comment section like she's a plot point of a TV show. It's really sad when you think about it. Whatever you think of David, whatever you think of the rumors, I want you to leave this video understanding the law. And we're looking at it from a legal perspective. What is fact versus speculation? What is a rumor versus what is proven? What a grand jury can and can't do. and what we're actually waiting on before anybody can say justice was or wasn't served. We're still very early on in the legal process in Celeste's case. So let me know in the comment section, based on what we know right now, what do you think the grand jury is going to do? Indict, no bail, or keep digging? And court of public opinion, this is when I give these choices to you. And as this case moves, if there's an indictment, if records get unsealed, if a trial date is set, you already know. I'll be right here walking you through every step, reading through the actual documents with you. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like, make sure you've subscribed, hype, because that's a new feature.
Yep. I'd love to keep going and find another clip or two, but unfortunately, I gotta get out of here. With that said, I'm gonna hit my jump. Peace out.